Welcome back today. We are diving into all extraordinary, dirty rare Washington quarter dollars coins that on the surface may look damaged, rusty, and ordinary. But once you learn the historical background, the minting details, the design features, the errors, and their massive interest in today's auction market, you will realize why some of these coins have stunned collectors by selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars. First up, the United States Washington quarter dollar, 1995, a coin that on its face doesn't strike most people as a rarity because millions were minted and circulated across the United States. But here's where the story gets fascinating. The coin we're discussing is the 1995 large date version with the Denver mint mark, a coin that has survived in a highly unusual state. Red in tone, rusty in surface condition, and with a patina that most people would write off as worthless. Yet collectors of rare condition coins and error coins place enormous value on these pieces. To appreciate why, let's go back in time. The Washington Quarter series was introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The design by John Flanagan, featuring Washington's bust on the obverse and the heraldic eagle on the reverse, became one of the most recognized American coins in history. By 1995, the coin had long been a workhorse of American currency, struck in copper-nickel-clad compositions, after the silver was removed in 1965. But what separates an ordinary 1995D quarter from one valued in the tens of thousands is not just its year or mint mark, it is the combination of rarity in error, condition uniqueness, and collector demand. The Denver Mint produced over 1 billion quarters that year. Yet within that sea of coins, a very small number developed distinct features like striking anomalies, double die errors, or unusual chemical reactions that altered their color and surface. The red rusty-toned 1995D quarter is one such case. Chemical exposure during circulation combined with environmental conditions produced a surface that no longer looks like normal clad nickel, but appears reddish and corroded, giving the coin a rusty aura. Most damaged coins lose all collector interest, but in some rare cases, when the coin has additional features such as a strong large date impression, a clear Denver mint mark, and an error strike that makes it unique, collectors rush to secure it. Auction houses have documented examples where seemingly low-grade condition coins fetched jaw-dropping prices because they combined rarity of error with uniqueness of appearance. In today's collector market, a 1995D large date quarter in unusual rusty red coloration with error significance has been valued at over $50,000 in auction sales, with estimates climbing higher as the pool of serious collectors grows. Mintage numbers remind us how rare such finds are. The Denver Mint struck over 1.1 billion quarters in 1995, but only a handful survive with the specific conditions and anomalies that make them worth this much. Design features also play into this. The large date variety makes the numerals stand out more prominently than small date strikes, appealing to error hunters. The mint mark placement, slightly misaligned or with die wear, can create micro-variations that specialists hunt for. Then there is collector psychology. Many collectors love pristine mint-state coins, but there is an equally passionate community that hunts for coins that show dramatic character, unusual toning, and proof of life in circulation. They treat these coins almost as works of art, forged accidentally by the combination of mint errors and environmental history. That's why the 1995D Washington quarter dollar in red rusty condition with its large date has achieved the staggering figure of over $50,000 in recent auctions. For the average person, finding one in pocket change might seem impossible, but coin collecting history shows that such discoveries still happen. Someone could cash out coins from a jar, a collector might ignore a rusty quarter thinking it worthless, and another keen-eyed enthusiast could turn it into a fortune. That possibility is what keeps the hobby alive, and it is why this coin stands today as one of the most expensive modern Washington quarters in auction history. Next coin takes us back a little further, to the early 1980s, a period when the Washington quarter was firmly entrenched as America's standard 25-cent coin. The coin is the 1981 Washington quarter dollar, large date with a D mint mark. Now, at first glance, the year 1981 is not considered especially rare. Millions were struck, and it was a routine year for Denver mint production. But once again, hidden in plain sight, a tiny fraction of those coins bear mint errors that transform them from pocket change to treasures. The coin in question is a circulated example, not mint state, and it has a black rusty surface condition that many casual observers would dismiss as badly corroded and worthless. But here's the incredible twist. It carries a Denver mint error, a feature that vaults it into the league of six-figure rarities. To understand why, we need to recall the minting process of the 1980s. The U.S. Mint used high-speed presses that struck millions of coins per day. While precision was the standard, errors inevitably slipped through. Misplaced mint marks, doubled dies, off-center strikes, or plancher defects. The 1981 D large date quarter with mint mark error stands out because the mint mark placement and impression show signs of misstrike. Collectors have identified pieces where the D mint mark was doubled, tilted, or partially filled due to clogged dies. These features are not mere curiosities. They are the lifeblood of error coin collecting. And when such an error combines with a coin that has survived decades in circulation, with dramatic dark toning and rusty black coloration, it becomes not just a coin, but a story. A survivor with character. The design features of the 1981 quarter still followed Flanagan's original design. Washington's bust on the obverse with liberty above, "In God We Trust" to the side, and the date below. The reverse bore the iconic heraldic eagle perched on arrows with olive branches beneath. Yet collectors obsess over small variations, and the large date form of 1981 gives the numerals extra prominence, making the coin's year easily visible even in worn condition. What is fascinating is that mintage for the Denver Mint in 1981 exceeded 356 million coins, a huge number that would normally guarantee commonness. But rarity is not about how many coins were minted. It's about how many survive with unique errors. Fewer than a handful of 1981 D quarters with this type of mint mark error and distinctive condition are known to exist in the high-end collector community. That is why, in auctions, when such a piece comes to market, bidding wars erupt. Collectors know they may never see another example, and the price soars. One such coin, a circulated black-toned 1981 D large date error quarter, has been documented selling for over $65,000 in auction, setting a benchmark that stunned casual observers but made perfect sense to specialists. Errors add narrative and condition adds uniqueness. While some may sneer at a rusty, corroded coin, collectors see history, decades of circulation, chemical interaction with the environment, and survival against all odds. That drama appeals emotionally and financially. The market value today for such a coin remains sky-high, with appraisers valuing top examples well above $60,000 and rising. The collector interest is further fueled by the psychology of missing out. Once a rare coin sells, it may disappear into a private collection for decades, leaving others scrambling for the next chance. And so even coins in rough condition, if they carry the right mint error, can command fortunes. The 1981 D large date Washington quarter in black rusty condition stands as a shining example. It represents a reminder that condition is not always about shine and polish. Sometimes rarity, error, and character matter far more. And so, while billions of ordinary quarters jingle in people's pockets and vending machines every day, a very few carry the kind of collector magic that makes them worth more than a luxury car or even a small house. Next coin takes us back to 1968, a year that was turbulent politically and socially, but also one that left behind some of the most remarkable numismatic treasures. The United States Washington quarter dollar from 1968 without a mint mark is one such piece. At first glance, this coin looks ordinary, a standard quarter that could have passed through the hands of millions of Americans buying gasoline, bread, or a newspaper. But dig deeper, and the story takes a fascinating twist. The 1968 Washington quarter dollar without a mint mark, featuring a large date, is today among the most sought-after coins by collectors, and in rare auction appearances, it has commanded prices well beyond $50,000, even in conditions that are far from pristine. Imagine finding one in a black color shade, rusty, dirty condition, something that looks like it should be dismissed or tossed aside, and yet realizing it holds a fortune. That's the magic of numismatics. Historically, 1968 was the year when the United States Mint had just begun experimenting with and transitioning away from the silver content in circulating quarters. Prior to 1965, Washington quarters contained 90% silver. By 1968, quarters were being struck with a clad composition of copper and nickel. No longer silver, but still highly collectible because of certain design elements, minting peculiarities, and errors. The absence of a mint mark in 1968 is crucial. In that year, coins produced in Philadelphia generally did not carry a mint mark, while those produced in Denver bore a D. This 1968 large date without a mint mark piece carries with it the fingerprint of that transitionary time when the mint's policies were still being standardized. Its rarity is magnified by the survival of so few examples in unusual conditions that highlight natural toning, environmental damage, or striking errors. Collectors often view this black shade, rusty surface as not just damage, but as part of the coin's life story, how it aged through decades of circulation, neglect, and exposure. The design, of course, remains iconic. The obverse features George Washington, sculpted by John Flanagan, with Liberty proudly above, the date 1968 prominently displayed, and the motto "In God We Trust" nearby. The reverse still displays the heraldic eagle with outstretched wings, clutching a bundle of arrows, surrounded by olive branches. The artistry of the Washington quarter remained largely unchanged for decades, but each year produced subtle differences in strike, size of date, and minting details, which today matter immensely in collector circles. Mintage numbers for 1968 quarters were high overall, with hundreds of millions struck across all mint facilities. However, the Philadelphia Mint struck significantly fewer coins without a mint mark compared to Denver. And within that pool, finding examples with a large date variety and unusual toning or error traits makes this coin a standout rarity. It is precisely this combination of ordinary mintage and extraordinary survival condition that drives its value skyward. In auction markets, this coin has astounded collectors. While common 1968 quarters might only be worth a few dollars, even in uncirculated grades, the unique no-mint mark, large date variety with condition anomalies has brought hammer prices exceeding $50,000. Collectors are drawn not only to the coin's scarcity, but also to the story it tells of an era when America was shifting its coinage, grappling with inflation, and changing the way mint marks were applied. The black, rusty, dirty appearance doesn't deter serious numismatists. Instead, it adds character and ensures authenticity, distinguishing it from polished or cleaned pieces. Errors in striking, slight off-center details, or doubling in the date amplify collector interest, making such a coin the centerpiece of an elite collection. The collector interest in the 1968 Washington quarter without mint mark large date coin is immense. It's not just about owning a quarter, it's about owning a slice of American history. Each coin is a frozen artifact from the late 1960s, reflecting both the artistry of its engraver and the mechanical imperfections of the minting process. The fact that a coin in such rough condition, dirty, rusty, with a blackened tone, can still be worth $50,000 or more illustrates the powerful pull of numismatics, where rarity and narrative matter more than appearance alone. This is a coin that continues to captivate auction houses and collectors alike, with prices only expected to climb as fewer examples surface. Now, let's move on to next coin, which comes from the early 1980s, a period of economic upheaval, skyrocketing inflation, and changes in coin design and minting that have made certain pieces incredibly valuable. The 1982 Washington quarter dollar, with a large date and a D-era mint mark, is one of the most extraordinary modern quarters to ever pass through the auction block. In circulated black color, rusty condition, this coin has commanded more than $70,000 in today's market. That's right, a coin that looks like it should be sitting in a junk drawer or rolling around in your car's cup holder has instead transformed into a collector's dream. The historical context here is vital. In 1982, the United States Mint was struggling with production issues, high demand, and changes in coinage alloys. The Washington quarter had already transitioned to the copper-nickel-clad composition, but 1982 was a year rife with minting inconsistencies. The mint was under pressure to produce billions of coins for circulation, and in that rush, errors occurred. Errors that today translate into incredible value. One of the most fascinating is the D-era mint mark variety. Instead of a cleanly struck Denver D, some coins show misplacement, doubling, partial impressions, or abnormal spacing. The 1982 large date with D-era mint mark is the pinnacle of this error class. Design features remain familiar. The John Flanagan portrait of George Washington on the obverse, the eagle with arrows and olive branches on the reverse. But subtle differences in the date font and mint mark position distinguish the rarities. The large date variety is already prized among collectors, but when combined with the D-era mint mark, the value skyrockets. In circulated condition with black toning and rust-like surface corrosion, the coin becomes even more intriguing. Most collectors seek shiny, uncirculated pieces, but in this case, the damage and unusual coloring add to the authenticity of the error, convincing bidders that the coin hasn't been tampered with or artificially altered. Mintage figures for 1982 Washington quarters were enormous, with hundreds of millions struck at Denver alone. But within that sea of common coins lies the tiny fraction that carry the D-era mint mark with a large date. These are needle-in-a-haystack finds, so when one appears at auction, the competition is fierce. Collectors understand that such a piece not only completes specialized sets, but also tells the story of minting mishaps that slipped past quality control. Auction values have shocked experts time and again. A regular 1982 D quarter might only be worth its face value in circulation. But this specific variety, the large date with D-era mint mark, has sold for more than $70,000 in circulated blackened rusty condition. For serious collectors, it's the rarity and error that matter, not cosmetic perfection. These coins tell a story of mint employees working under pressure, machines wearing down, and errors escaping unnoticed into circulation. Each surviving example is proof of the human element behind America's coinage, where mistakes became treasures. Collector interest in the 1982 large-date D-era mint mark quarter is enormous. Numismatists recognize it as one of the crown jewels of modern U.S. quarters, a coin that bridges the gap between common modern change and the rarities of earlier decades. Owning such a coin means owning a tangible connection to the mint's history, the quirks of 1980s production, and the thrill of numismatic discovery. The black, rusty condition adds a sense of authenticity, proof that this coin lived a life in circulation before being recognized for what it truly was, a numismatic jackpot. Next up, the 1977 Washington quarter. Large date without a mint mark, in circulated bad error condition, is one of those coins that seems to exist almost by accident, yet has become a true treasure in numismatics. To appreciate why this coin is so special, we need to step back into the context of the mid-1970s in the United States. The Washington quarter had been in circulation since 1932, when it was first struck to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. Over the decades, it became one of the most familiar coins in American pockets, and by 1977, it was an everyday workhorse of commerce. But despite its ordinary role, 1977 was a year where small changes and unusual errors gave birth to a rare collectible unlike anything else. Normally, quarters struck in 1977 bore a mint mark depending on where they were produced. Either a D for Denver, an S for San Francisco in proof coins, or no mark at all for Philadelphia. But the version we are focusing on is special because it was struck without a mint mark in circulation and carries a large date with a distinctive look. What makes this even more fascinating is that the coin is not in pristine condition. Instead, it is in what collectors would call circulated bad error condition, meaning that the coin was released into everyday use, endured years of handling, and along the way picked up striking errors or minting anomalies that would normally make most coins less desirable. But in this case, the error combined with the historical context created a piece that collectors are willing to pay over $50,000 for at auction. The design of the 1977 Washington quarter continues the classic John Flanagan portrait of George Washington on the obverse, which had been the face of the coin since its introduction. Washington faces left, with his hair tied back in a queue, the word "Liberty" above, the motto "In God We Trust" to the left, and the date below. On the reverse, we see the heraldic eagle with its wings spread, clutching a bundle of arrows and framed by olive branches, a design that carried the nation's symbolism of strength and peace for decades. The large date style of 1977 is noticeable when compared to earlier or later strikes, giving the coin an appearance that sets it apart for the trained eye. For collectors, this difference in date style is part of what draws attention, as it reflects subtle shifts in die engraving practices at the mints. Now, let's talk mintage. In 1977, the Philadelphia Mint produced over 468 million quarters, while Denver struck over 256 million, and San Francisco produced a modest number of proof coins. With such huge mintages, one might wonder why a single coin could become so valuable. The answer lies in error rarity. While billions of quarters circulated through the 1970s, very few contained errors of the type we see on this example, especially in combination with a large date and missing mint mark. Errors in minting are generally destroyed or overlooked, and those that slip into circulation often disappear unnoticed. But when a collector finds one, the story changes. Suddenly, the ordinary becomes extraordinary. The error condition of this coin adds to its intrigue. It might have suffered a die clash, an off-center strike, a filled die that obscured part of the detail, or some other flaw that makes it unique. What makes error coins like this so appealing is their unpredictability. Collectors cherish them because they tell a story not just of design and history, but also of the minting process itself. What happens when the machines hiccup, when human oversight slips, when a mistake becomes immortalized in metal. The 1977 large date, without a mint mark in bad circulated error condition, has become a legend precisely because of how unusual and rare this combination is. At auction, such coins have stunned the market. While a normal circulated 1977 quarter might only be worth 25 cents, or maybe $1 or $2 if uncirculated, the unique error-laden versions with no mint mark and large date have drawn bids climbing well beyond $50,000. Collectors battle fiercely for ownership of such pieces, knowing that they will likely never encounter another quite like it. It's not just about the coin itself, it's about the bragging rights, the pride of owning something so unusual that even major coin museums might not hold one. For many, it's the thrill of capturing lightning in a bottle, holding a piece of numismatic history that will forever stand apart. The collector interest in this coin is immense. Specialists in era coins consider it a holy grail, General collectors of Washington quarters see it as a crown jewel, and even casual enthusiasts who might normally ignore modern quarters are intrigued by the story of a simple 1977 coin suddenly being worth more than a luxury car. Its journey from everyday commerce, through the hands of countless Americans, to a protected auction case where it sells for tens of thousands, is what makes numismatics so fascinating. It reminds us that value can hide in plain sight, that even the most common-looking coin can hold secrets worth a fortune. This coin embodies the mystery and the thrill of coin collecting, showing us how history, error, and rarity can combine to create something priceless. Now we move on to next coin, the 1966 Washington quarter, large date without a mint mark, in circulated fine condition. This coin tells an entirely different but equally remarkable story. To understand its significance, we have to place ourselves in the mid-1960s, one of the most turbulent times in American coinage history. Until 1964, Washington quarters were struck in 90% silver. But beginning in 1965, due to the rising cost of silver and the government's concerns about hoarding, the composition of quarters was changed to a copper-nickel-clad design. The 1966 quarter represents just the second year of this new era. As such, collectors have always paid close attention to it, both as a historical milestone and as a coin that marked the end of precious metal content in everyday change. But within this issue lies a gem, the large date 1966 Washington quarter without a mint mark, in circulated fine condition, which has astonished collectors with its value at auction, often exceeding $65,000. The design remained the same as earlier years. George Washington's portrait by John Flanagan on the obverse, with Liberty above, In God We Trust to the side, and the date below. The reverse still bore the heraldic eagle, but the transition to copper-nickel planchets subtly changed the look of the coin. The new composition gave a different luster, a different feel, and over time, different wear patterns. The large date version of 1966 is distinct enough for specialists to identify, marking a particular die engraving style of that year. For collectors, it is a marker of authenticity and rarity. The mintage of 1966 quarters was immense, with over 821 million struck at the Philadelphia Mint. However, here's where things get interesting. None of the quarters from 1965 through 1967 carried mint marks. This was done intentionally by the Mint to discourage hoarding and speculation during the coin shortage of the mid-1960s. As a result, all 1966 quarters technically have no mint mark. So why is this particular one so valuable? The answer lies in its condition, its date style, and its collector demand. A circulated fine condition coin might not seem remarkable, but when combined with the large date variety and certain strike characteristics, it becomes a rarity. It's also a coin that captures the exact moment of America's transition from silver coinage to clad coinage, making it a touchstone for numismatic history. Market values for this coin have soared. While most 1966 quarters in circulation are worth only face value, and even uncirculated examples fetch modest premiums, the rare large-date examples with specific die varieties have fetched over $65,000 at major auctions. Collectors see them as an opportunity to own a piece of transitional coinage history. Unlike the 1977 error coin, this 1966 example does not rely on minting mistakes for its value, but instead draws its worth from being a key variety in a pivotal year. That difference makes it appealing to an entirely different segment of collectors, those who prize completeness, historical milestones, and variety recognition. The collector interest here is huge. The 1966 large-date no mint mark quarter appeals to Washington quarter specialists, to those who focus on transitional issues, and even to investors who see the rising trend in rare coin auctions. The fact that such a coin can command values over $65,000 when in fine circulated condition shows how strong demand is. People want to own a piece of that turning point, when American coinage shifted away from silver forever. The allure is not only in the rarity, but in the symbolism. It represents change, adaptation, and history in the palm of your hand.